Hey guys, welcome back to F1 Survival Guide again. So I hope everyone knows who I am by now. So my name is Sam Guan. I'm now at F2 working at Queen's Elizabeth Hospital, Birmingham. I'm also the course director for this teaching program. Today again, we have got Shah to be our moderator. Shah, do you want to say something quickly to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Shah. I'm an F1 in Birmingham. So I'll just be sort of channeling the questions to Sam and Wesleyan. So we've got Chris from Wesleyan. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Shah. So today we are delighted to have a representative from Wesleyan to talk to us about financial planning. So let's all welcome Chris from Wesleyan. So Chris, I'll pass it on to you.
All right, sorry guys, there we go. First technical hitch, there we go. Can you hear me? Thumbs up? Yeah. Okay, right. Sorry, guys. My name's Chris Slevenhook. I'm a financial consultant at Wesleyan, and obviously, thanks for inviting us today to have a chat around financial planning, which many of you will perhaps start thinking about on your sort of role and career path going forward. I've been in the industry, and many of us at Wesleyan have been for a number of years, but we specialise in hospital doctors, dentists and GPs, and hopefully through the presentation, if that's okay. Do you want me to run into the presentation, guys, or do you want to sort of do a little bit more of an intro?
I think you can go to the presentation.
Okay. Okay, great. So I'll come off screen, hopefully, and you can see the presentation again. Just let me know that you can see it, and then we can go ahead. So let's have a look. Okay. Can you see the screen, guys?
Very good.
Okay, that's gone through a little bit there, isn't it? Okay, so can you see the introduction sort of Wesleyan screen, guys?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, right. So apologies for the technical hitch, but we'll quickly sort of run through this. So today's really about an introduction to Wesleyan. And as I say, I'm Chris Slevenhook. We've also got a colleague on the line here, James Cox. We look after sort of Staffordshire, parts of the West Midlands, Shropshire, etc. But as I go through the presentation, we actually look after the whole country in terms of looking at medics, and hopefully this will be applicable to your own sort of circumstances. So just an overview of Wesleyan if you haven't heard of us before. Wesleyan has been going for over 175 years. Okay, 178 to be precise. And we were founded by doctors for doctors. So hopefully we've got a good understanding by now in terms of your career path and also the issues that you face both internally, being in the medic profession, but obviously applying the normal general rules of looking after your finances. So we have sort of inroads into an advisory board which covers all of your peers, I suppose, in terms of medicine, and we ask them what you guys want in terms of advice, products, and to give us an idea of what we should be offering you as a service in financial advice. So as I've already mentioned, we have an army of consultants across the country. There's around about 300 of us. And we're all sort of specialised in certain sectors. So we have hospital doctor advisors, GP advisors, dentist advisors. We also look after teachers and lawyers, but obviously we're focusing on medics tonight. So I think that's running on a little bit quickly there. So we feel that we're sort of specialists in certainly the NHS pension scheme because we know it inside and out, but also your career path in terms of, you know, the different grades that you go through, the different channels that you can go on to, and whether you decide GP, consultant, locum, whatever it may be, setting up private practices, you name it, we've obviously come across it over the years. The benefits of Wesleyan, if you haven't heard of us before, we are different where we are a mutual, which means we are owned by our policyholders and our clients. So every doctor that's with us sort of participates in the benefits of that, and we plough any profits of our company back into the products that we sell and also the returns that we give doctors, because we manage, I think it's around about 7 billion of doctors' money now. So we're not a small outfit, but we're obviously well renowned and respected, I think, within the medic community. And we've recently got a tie-in with the Royal College of GPs for offering financial advice going forward. What I will point out, we provide no obligation free financial reviews. And what we will be doing either at the end of this or after the questions is just sending you out a link. Hopefully you'll get in touch with us so we can have a proper chat about your own circumstances, and that will come out to you going forward. So how can we help? Okay, so we're here to try and give you a lifetime of financial needs and look after you, whatever that may be and wherever life takes you within your career. But we do give advice around many areas, including savings and investments. So you may or may not be familiar with ISAs, investment bonds. We also look after sort of financial protection, and I know a lot of you guys are keen to protect your earnings now that you're fully fledged if you were to get into trouble from an income protection point of view. And we obviously can have a discussion about that. You guys are probably on the track to buying your own properties, and we have a mortgage service which is whole of market. And because we understand your pay grades, your systems, etc., we're best placed to look after sourcing a mortgage for you. And we are whole of life in terms of, or whole of market, should I say, in terms of the mortgage service, which I'll come on to a little bit more detail in a second. Obviously, we are experts in the pension scheme. Again, we'll cover it a little bit today, but we also give advice to the older doctors around estate planning and inheritance tax planning. And as you'd expect from a fully rounded financial outfit, we look after, sorry, my slides keep going forward. We can offer sort of travel insurance, motor insurance and car insurance. And when you become a member, there's currently a discount of 20% and price matching on that. And for those that are interested, Wesleyan also have a bank. So if you become a partner or need to buy premises, etc., we also have the facilities to do that. So we're hopeful as a one-stop shop to be able to provide you advice, whether you're just starting out in your career or, at the end of your career when you come to retirement and beyond. I'm just going to quickly sort of give you an overview, how we're doing for time, on the pension scheme. Obviously, it's a big topic and has been for a number of years now, and that's probably where the complexity comes in for advice. But with you being sort of new recruits on the road within your career, most of you will have gone into the 2015 scheme, which has now become a career average scheme, and you accrue a bit of pension for each year based on your earnings. And as you can see by the side of the slide there, there's no lump sum on that anymore, but you do accrue 1/54th for your earnings going forward. But what they have done, they've moved out the normal retirement age to 67, 68 in line with state pension, which is probably some of your colleagues have been moaning about of why they've been changed across. And you're probably aware of the McLeod sort of report that's recently come out about rectifying that. But your planning should be quite straightforward. And what we can do is work with you to understand what the retirement and the NHS pension gives you, which is a gold-plated scheme, whether they've changed the rules or not. And we can guide you in terms of what that's going to give you in terms of projecting forward. And hopefully we can help you with that. So the new scheme has changed to a career average scheme. So therefore you don't get a percentage of your final salary. It's built up each year, and it then gets indexed to provide you with a total reward statement each year of what your benefits are going to be. So if you haven't logged on to that, then you should register to make sure that you've got access to your pension information. Okay, so just to rattle through this, because I feel that time is sort of cracking on. You can buy additional pension, you can build up cash savings, you can look at alternative investments, and obviously you can look at property, which probably most of you will be thinking about of getting on the property ladder and having your own sort of place. And that may change as you find your career path and move around the country. So we mentioned the mortgage service, and I was asked to sort of talk about mortgage. We try and make it as easy as possible, and we'll analyse what's available in the marketplace and find the most suitable lender for you. We've got the whole of the market to go to. We pay no upfront fees for us. Our job is to find you the best deal and present the best case to get you the best mortgage that we can. So we don't charge any upfront fees, and we'll help manage the application process in terms of, you know, from the start to the end to make sure that you get moved into your own place. So come and talk to us when you're in a position and you want to start looking at mortgages. Okay. If you are thinking of mortgages for the first time, do you buy it on yourself, or joint if you have a partner? And I know many parents now are getting involved to try and help people get on the property ladder. But you need a deposit. You need to consider of how long you want the mortgage over, and obviously there's fees involved now with buying property, which we can obviously talk you through of how that works and make it as simple as possible. Stamp duty, that's been sort of alleviated a little bit with what's going on with COVID. There's a delay on that, but that will be introduced again in 12 months' time. Again, we can bring you up to speed with what's going on with that, and we can talk about what sort of surveys, etc., you need depending on the type of property that you're looking at. So we're looking for mortgages that you can take with you wherever you move, because I know your career path changes and you do move around different hospitals and around the country before you settle on one particular place. And just to cover off the basics, really, you may be aware of, most people go for a repayment mortgage now, so you make sure that the house is paid off during the term. But there is interest only as well, where you have to take out a vehicle to pay the lender back at the end of the term. So again, depending on your own circumstances, we can sort out what's beneficial for you. And you'll be heard of these kind of terms: discounted, fixed, variable, trackers, offset mortgages. Again, we can cover all this off for your own specific sort of requirements when you ask us to have a look around for you. Okay, so considerations for buying. What do you need in a new home? Usual sort of thing. Hopefully it's somewhere that you want to live. But can you afford it per month? Because that seems to be the main crux of things now in terms of how much they will lend you. And how much can you borrow? Well, obviously, depending on the income that you've got and your expenditure, which is a little bit tighter now in terms of making sure you can afford payments on mortgages. Okay, so this sort of slide just covers typically 10% deposit is required for mortgages now. To get some of the better deals, 25% needs to go down in terms of how much you want to put down and borrow against the property. But again, you know, it's on an individual basis depending on where you are in the country and what you need to buy. So just to sort of round it off on this, hopefully that gives you a flavour in terms of mortgages. I did briefly sort of talk about income protection. A lot of people get introduced to Wesleyan early doors on a student, and we have come around to the student sort of seminars and introduced Wesleyan and free cover for income protection. But it is vitally important that you understand the benefits with the NHS of how long they actually cover you for if you're off work long term. So we are probably renowned for protecting your income for the whole of your career to make sure that you can still pay mortgages, bring up the family, and have a decent standard of living if unfortunately you fall foul of long-term illness. So that gives you a little bit of a flavour of what we do. As I say, we do offer a free, no obligation sort of consultation. So please take us up on that offer. Hopefully there's some questions coming through. I'll probably overstay my time, haven't I, there? So, but please fire some questions through. There is a question and answer through at the end of it, and hopefully we can get some answers and some questions out on that. But is that okay? Shall we close it there? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chris.
Okay.
For your quick talk. So I'm sure people now know more about what Wesleyan do and also probably what service that they can provide. So Chris will be available until the end of the talk. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to put it on Q&A, or as Chris mentioned, feel free to book an appointment with one of the Wesleyan consultants. Okay, so now let's just move on to our talk right now. So here we go. I think now everyone should be able to see.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So I hope all of you are settling well into your new job, and I hope you guys find the tips that I gave in the last 3 sessions useful. If you still have got some questions relating to your job or relating to e-portfolio, feel free to put it on the Q&A session. I will try to pick it up and answer all of them. Okay, so now let's move back to our today's topic. So today's topic is how to do an audit, or QIP, so which stands for Quality Improvement Project. So audits or QIP, they are quite important as being a doctor. So for foundation year level, so as I mentioned in the previous talk, so it's mandatory for all the foundation training to do at least 1 audit or QIP for each year, and then also it is something that you'll be assessed during your specialty training application. Even when you are a consultant, you have to do audits or QIP for your appraisal. So you can see how important it is. You can get involved in all the stages of being a doctor. And so therefore today I want you guys to pay attention and listen carefully what I'm going to say in the next 15 minutes. Let's begin. So this is the content of today's talk. So I'm going to spend 15 minutes just to quickly brief you guys about what is audits or QIP and how to plan and to perform it, and then we'll move on to our Q&A sessions for the next half an hour after the talk. To begin with, I want to start with some definitions. So we just mentioned about audit and QIP, and also I'm sure that most of you have come across the term research. Actually, what are they? So to define audits, so audit is actually looking at how things are performing. So you can look at how an individual or a department they are performing. So this is about audit, and then QIP is similar to audit, but they are different. I'm going to talk more about this later on. But basically, QIP is looking at is to try to improve your service by looking at how you perform. And research is something completely different. Just want to clear for you guys. So research is to look for new knowledge, which is different from audit or QIP. So to talk about the difference between audit and QIP, so audit is to look at things in a fixed period of time, and to measure how your service, it can be an individual service or a departmental service, compliant to the standard. But however, on the other hand, QIP is a continuous process. So you look at you look at the standards, how you perform, how your department, usually it's a department, how you perform it, and then to see how can you improve it. And then you do another audit to see whether you have met the standard. So audit, as I said, it can be more individualized. So you probably have heard some surgeons, they do audits to look at their operation successful rate and their complication rate. But QIP is more looking at about the system at the hospital so that we can provide the best care for our patients. So I just want to put up the famous audit cycle. I'm not going to talk about this and go through it bit by bit. So there are 5 steps, and each step sometimes can take up to months. So therefore you can see audit can be a long process. Some of the audit I've heard it take years to complete. So don't worry, this talk we are not going to focus on all these long audits, which is going to take 2 years. You might not finish when you complete your foundation year. So I'm here just to focus to tell you guys how to plan and do a quick audit, which will help you guys to fulfill the requirement as a foundation trainee, and also can help you guys to get the maximum point for specialty application. I'm just going to put on here just for reference. So I've redefined these 5 steps in. So I've redefined these 5 steps into planning. So it's into, so first of all, it's preparation, and then planning, and then also collection of data, analysis, and at the end we will talk about you need to present your findings. So this is my 5 new audit cycle. So I know the slide is not showing, but I'm just going to talk through it to you right now. So let's start from the first stage, preparation. So preparation, so first of all, you want to do an audit, you have to choose a topic. So it is probably a bit difficult to think of a topic out of a blue moon. So it is, so therefore, I think it would be very useful if you observe what happened either on the ward or at the department on a daily basis, so that you can get some idea, or maybe you can get some inspiration of what you want to do and what you want to improve. I would suggest you to do something you're genuinely interested, because there's no point for you to do something that you're not interested. An audit take at least 3 to 4 months to complete. So therefore, I would suggest you to find something that you're interested, or else you will lose your passion and give up very easily. And then once you think of a topic, you need to do your research about some relevant guidelines, about what standards that you're going to use for an audit. And then you need to start preparing to write a proposal. So last time we mentioned about SMART to do your PDPs. So this time I think SMART can be also used when you write a proposal for your audit. So just want to go through again, what is SMART? So SMART means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So this is basically your objectives or your aims should be based on this rubric. It is sometimes when you're trying to plan an audit, it might not be enough just you as a team. So you have to find some more people to join you. So you can join with some other F1s, or you can find some seniors to help. So I think if you are doing your first audit, it is better to find a senior, such as your SHOs or your registrar, try to help, because they are probably more experienced and they can give you some good advice in terms of how to proceed with things, how to arrange your things and stuff. And finally, you need to find a consultant to be your supervisor, because all these projects has to be in charge by a consultant. They don't usually do a lot of things, but they can be helpful sometimes. So that, and also it is a policy of the trust of most of the hospital, all the project has to go under consultant. So therefore, speak to your consultant once you have got your idea, and then you can register your proposal with information governance. This is a very important step, because if you don't do that, it doesn't count towards your portfolio. So make sure you do that. And then you need to start your proper planning stage. So now you need to be very clear and specific about what the problem is and what the standards are. So once you are very clear about this, and then you can plan how to collect your data. So you need to know where the data, how does where does it exist, and how to collect it. Is it who to ask, basically? So is it through a computer, or you need to ask a specific person, something like that. And then you have also need to determine whether you look at things retrospectively or prospectively. What does that mean? So retrospectively means looking at things backwards. So it's probably the easier way, because things are more organized. So things will be more organized. So they will be stored, and then things will be more properly documented usually on the computer if you look at things retrospectively. But however, sometimes you might not be able to do that for some certain reasons. Maybe you don't have enough numbers, then you have to do things prospectively in that case, unfortunately. And then you have to set your inclusion or exclusion criteria to see who you want to include in your audit and which you want to exclude in your audit in terms of patient population wise. And then it's also very good habit to assign what to do in your team. So that's why each of you will be responsible for certain things, then can make things easier in this way. Now we will be talking about, now we are talking about the data collection stage, moving on now. So which is, I would say, is the action stage. So before you start your data collection, you need something to store your data, isn't it? So I would usually suggest you use something called a performer. So what does that mean? So a performer actually is just it's just a spreadsheet. It is something that is very easy for you to organize and to look at the data when you are doing analysis later on. You should make it as simple and as straightforward as possible. So don't make it too long because it is going to take a long while for you to fill it in, and don't make it too short as well because it might not cover all the things. Just a very small point, just make sure you don't include the items that are duplicated or something that you are not even you're not sure about, because if you include these sort of vague things, you will they will not be useful, and it will be just be wasting your time to collect these data. So I would usually suggest Microsoft Excel to be the tool to use to collect to use for a performer. But some people love to use Google Sheets. I think it's more popular these days. And also there is also a software called RedCap that can be used. But probably you might not need to use that because these are probably more for more complicated audit involving multiple centers and stuff. And then once you know what's your patient target, for example, 100, and you've got 4 people, then you can split the workload. So as there's an old saying, many more hands make work light. So it's important to split the workload, 25 patients each, and make things much simpler. And also you need to know where to, as I said, you need to know where to collect the data. It is something that is available on the system. If it is the case, that will be very easy. But some of the things, like if your trust is using paper drug charts, then you might need to get hold of that paper drug chart. Then, so this probably is something that you need to think in terms of your back mind where to collect this information. And then after you're filling your performer, then you make sure they are all valid. So make sure you should find someone to go through it once. And then it comes to our analysis stage. So analysis stage, you probably, when you're doing your performer, you probably know what you want to, but basically what are the findings. So you have to summarize your finding and then to think about what your actions in terms of these findings. So when you're planning out action, it's probably a bit difficult for you to think out of just to think just to think without a system. So I would suggest you guys use a fishbone diagram or process mapping. Don't worry, I'm going to cover this in the next slide. So, and then after you have planned out your actions, so probably a couple points, and then make sure you discuss with the consultant, make sure they're happy with that, and then you have to discuss with the people, the corresponding personnel. If something is radiology, you should discuss with the radiologist or the radiographer, or if something that's related to a different team, then you have to discuss the person in charge in different team. So, and then after you discuss that and then they agree with your plan, and then you have to wait at this stage. You can't do anything, unfortunately, so for things to get changed. So and then after things get changed, probably it takes around at least 1 month to do that, and then you can do a re-audit to see if there's any improvement and stuff. So just talking back about fishbone diagram and process mapping. So these are the examples. So what's fishbone diagram? So you guys see my cursor. So fishbone diagram basically you find a problem, and then fishbone diagram can help you to think about what are the factors contributing to these problems. It could be a individual factor, personal factors, environmental factors, equipment factors, organization factors, blah, blah, etc. And then once you identify what are the factors that are causing the problems, and then you can think of how you can tackle the problems by basically focusing on doing something on these factors. So this is one of the useful tool I usually use to think about how to resolve a problem I identify in an audit. And then the second one is probably more about management pathway or patient's pathway, that sort of things. So it's called process mapping. Basically, you have to list out the process of one's going through. For example, their treatments or their when they are being seen at clinic, etc. What their pathway, what do they need to go through? You don't need to be long, probably 5 to 10 steps. That's fine. So this is an example about repeat prescriptions. So how basically a repeat prescription got to the patient. So how is it useful in terms of audit? So because when you are trying to audit some patient pathways, you need to know that in detail. And then you need to identify what is redundant or what is basically the time limiting factor. Basically, it takes most of time and making things not efficient. Once you identify that, you can focus on the particular steps and then just to see how can things be improved. So just to cite a quick example, so if you know the if the patients can't receive a repeat prescription, it's because the doctor takes ages to sign, then you can think of something to make the doctor to sign the prescription. And then after you have done your audit, you have to present it to your team. So each department, they usually have a monthly departmental audit meeting. They might not be doing that because of COVID right now, but they usually have one. So this time you have to ask your consultants when and where is the audit meeting, and then you can invite the relevant staff that are involved in your audit to attend. And then in your presentation, you should mention why you're doing the audit, and then what are your standards that you used in terms of your audit, and then what sort of problems that you found and what changes that you implemented. And then are they effective or are they being adopted by the teams? And then that can be talked about. These sort of data can be talked about during your re-audit. And now you have achieved your quality improvement. So this is just a very brief summary about how you can plan or perform an audit. So I just want to finish off with some useful tips. So as I emphasized a couple of times early on, you have to do one audit per year. So as I said, an audit can take you 3 to 4 months. So I don't know, depend on which deanery I use. So I think each rotation takes around 3 to 4 months. So make sure you start early. That's why, because once you're rotating and you have to take and you are not in the department, it's a bit difficult for you to go back to the department and do the audit. So that's why you start early, and then start talking to whoever needs to be involved, and then start to do the audit. A lot of people might invite you to participate in audit and stuff, but I would say focus on one good quality audit, because that one is probably can get you further ahead than you involve in more audit. But at the same time, you might be able to take more of your time out to do that. Make sure when you are involved in your audit, you complete the loop, you do the re-audit, and you do the presentation, because there's no point for you just to do it halfway and then you abandon that, because it's basically just wasting your time. And then once you have done your audit, you can present your work. So not only in the local departmental audit meeting, sometimes some regional, national, or international conference, they recruit poster presentation or even oral presentation about audit and stuff. So if you think your audit is very good, then you can try and write an abstract and submit that to this conference, and then you can get your points for application for your presentation. Sometimes if you are good enough, you can be able to you can even think of publishing your work. But make sure if you're doing that, make sure you get the evidence for that. So either you can ask a consultant to write a letter to prove that, or you can get usually information government, they will give you a certificate, or if you're presenting in a conference, make sure you get a certificate for that. Okay, so this is a whistle stop talk. So thank you very much for listening. So this is my email, and make sure you follow us on fy.medcast.com.uk.
Thank you so much, Sam. That was really, really useful. So I thought we could just go through some of the questions because we've had quite a lot coming in, which is really great. So some for you and also for Chris. So Chris, if you're still with us, just say hello. I'll start off with asking you a couple, Sam. So there were some questions around information governance. People were asking sort of what is information governance and how do you register your audit and that sort of thing.
Okay, so information governance is a team. They just looking at how the patient data are handled. It's about privacy and stuff, and also I'm sure you are aware of the GDPR, that sort of thing. So ignore that. So this is what they do. But what you need to know is how to register it. So go to your internet and find it out. So I think different trusts have different system. Usually it's an online system, or sometimes it's a thing that you just send an email and fill in the form. But yeah, it's really trust dependent. So for my trust, we are using a system called Cameras. And then basically we just fill it in online, the proposal, and submit it to the consultant for approval. And once the consultant approves that, then you can start your audit.
Thank you so much. So Chris, if I could pop a question to you. People are asking if they're going to move abroad, would you still recommend that they opt into the NHS pension scheme? And sorry, just unmute yourself before, because I forgot to unmute you. Thank you.
Okay. I would say, yeah, well, you should join anyway. You don't accrue any benefits until you've been in the scheme for 2 years, otherwise you get a refund. You know, and things do change going forward. If you don't join the scheme, then obviously you've lost a couple of years of service. But you also have the benefits of death in service if anything happens to you, etc. So I'd still join, even if the intention is to go abroad, because you don't accrue benefits fully and have preserved benefits until after 2 years. And even then, you can still receive the benefits if you're around the world when it comes to retirement.
Thank you so much. So Sam, if I can ask you the next question again. So there were again a couple of questions just clarifying information governance. So just whilst we're on that topic, I'll ask you.
Okay. That's
so
fine.
people are asking, is information governance the same as the clinical effectiveness register?
Sorry, I missed the last bit. So the clinical
effectiveness register.
So thank you very much for your question. From my knowledge, information governance is usually a team. They just looking after patients data and how they usually use it. And because when you're doing audit, you involve patient information. That's why they are sort of like taking care of this sort of audit and stuff. I'm not sure are they related to the clinical effectiveness team, but maybe because different trusts they have different systems, so there might be some correlation. But I'm sure that if you find on the internet and they will tell you how to register. To be honest, information governance is just there. It's just an agency for you to register your audit. They don't really get involved in a lot unless there's some issue relating to information use and stuff.
Thank you so much. And just on that topic, how would you say medical students or F1s could kind of approach the topic of audits with their consultant or with their team members?
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. So I can share my experience to you. So when I was a medical, so I think probably a lot of you are probably know that I'm interested in trauma orthopedics. So when I was a medical student, I'm usually close with one of the SHO, and because usually SHO registrar, they are required to do audit as part of the ARCP and stuff. So that's why they usually have got a project ongoing. I just asked them whether you can join. I think for the first time, if you don't know a lot about audit and how the system works, it's better to join into an audit and then have someone to guide you how things are working, and then the next one, then you can start planning on that. But I think in terms of consultant wise, you need to know who is the audit lead in your department, because every single department has got an audit lead. So recently, so I moved the jobs so to Trauma Orthopedics department at Queen Elizabeth Hospital. So I approached one of the consultants who is the audit lead. Then I just directly discussed about my plan of audit and whether he's happy for me to continue and stuff. Yeah, but don't be afraid. Speak to your seniors, speak to your consultants, because if you don't ask, you can't get anything done. So therefore, definitely ask.
Thank you so much. So there was one question that was kind of wanting to clarify the difference between audit and QIP. They wanted to know, are they right in understanding that when you carry out an audit, the process of coming up with an improvement strategy within the audit is the same thing as a quality improvement project?
Yes. Yes. So thank you for the question. So I know there are a lot of similarities between them. So it is very ambiguous, and they can be used interchangeably. Some people, when they say audit, they actually mean QIP. So I think in terms to summarize, so when you talk about audit, you just talk. I would say you just talk about things that you look at in one time. So look at it for the one time. So you just basically compare what in your department and with your with the standard that required. It's not necessarily like involving improving standards. So I'm involved in some sort of surgical audits. They basically I'm just like just assessing the performance of the department in terms of the surgery and stuff. But when we are talking about quality improvement project, there must be things to a suggestion or plan of action to improve your what your servers are, and then you do another re-audit to see what improvement that you have made. So I think that the differences I want to emphasize is the improvement part and also the re-audit part, just to see what sort of improvement that you have made in terms of this. So I hope that clarifies your question. Yeah, I know it's a bit complicated topic to understand, but don't worry. Just remember what my 5 steps of audit. So basically, preparation, planning, data collection, analysis, presentation. Make sure you include re-audit. Close the loop. That's it.
Thank you, Sam. So I was wondering if we could pose the next question to Tuva about presenting audits. So someone was asking if so their audit showed that the standards were actually excellent and they had a lot of good results in a sense from their audit. Would that still be something that they could present to places, and what are your advice on presenting audits or QIPs?
Yeah, I think you can present really anything. Remember, an audit, what you're doing is essentially validating the process. What you're saying, if the results say that you're doing a good job, is that what you're doing is worthwhile. So it's about sharing good practice as well as improving practice. You've got to remember that it's not always just about improving practice. It's also important that if you're doing something good, that you share it with your colleagues, and then so they can improve. Because I've, as a GP, I've been to plenty of practices where I see one thing done so well, whereas everyone else is behind in terms of miles, in terms of the amount of resources they can save. So with regards to presenting that, I guess it's all about framing it in the right way so that you sell to that audience. In terms of presentations, I'll have to say are once you figure out how to write an abstract, are pretty manageable to get. It depends on the quality, of course. The quality varies, and you can easily get a presentation in a national conference and then in international conferences. But as the quality of the conference improves, there'll be more scrutiny to that. So presentations are quite quite a manageable task. Now the publication, however, it's the more difficult task, because you have to write the report, it has to go to the peer reviewers, and they have to review it, and they'll come back to you saying, yes, we accept it, or we want to accept it with these specific changes, or rewrite it, and then we'll have another look at it for you, or straight out rejection. Because if you're going for one of the high impact journals like the Lancet, they're going to be it's going to go through a lot of scrutiny, whereas if you go for a low impact journal below, in fact that's about 1 or something, it might be a lot easier. Now there are of course things like BMJ Quality, who publish audits purely, so that's probably where I would start off as a junior doctor or an F1 when you're starting out, and especially things like the BJGP, they've put out calls for diversity and racial things like that. So remember, it's not always just audits that can be published. You can write a letter, and qualitative reports can also be published as well. So that's a bit about that. Any more questions, let us know. Just if I can ask another question to Chris from Wesley, if that's okay. It's something that's come up on the questions, is in terms of how income protection ties in with NHS sick pay, if that's okay, Chris.
Yes, not a problem. Obviously, on your career path, your benefits through the NHS goes up in line with service. But what we do, our products are designed to sort of fit in and dovetail with the NHS benefits. So obviously, the policy would only pay out after the NHS finished, and we can modify the income protection to fit in with your benefits and change it on a regular basis. But there's no point covering for benefits that are already covered by the NHS, and after a period of time, the usual benefit is obviously 6 months full pay and 6 months half pay through the NHS, and then after that we would bring in the income protection to your desired sort of terminal age, which is usually retirement or 60 or 65.
Thank you so much. Whilst we've got you here, I was wondering if we could ask you another quick question that's come up. So someone said they work as a healthcare assistant at the moment through medical school. So they're asking, will my pensions continue as normal if I work as a doctor, or will I have to restart? As you mentioned, you have to work for 2 years to get the benefits.
Good question, and I'm going to be honest to say I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but as long as you're part of the NHS scheme, you'll always be in the NHS pension scheme, whether you change across to a GP or go to a hospital doctor or have a different role within the NHS. So my inclination is you'll just carry on your service regardless of your role. I know James is listening. Do you have any update on that, or if you want to make a comment on that? But I can take it away and come back to you on that, just to make sure for 100%. But as long as you're an NHS employee, you're still entitled to join the pension and whatever role that you're in.
Thank you. I'm sure James will be listening and typing in some replies. And we can always, at the end of the talk, we'll share James's contact details with you guys as well, so you can email him any other questions that you have, and you can look into that that conversation as well. So Sam, just another question for you about ARCP specifically. So there are a few questions about, what are the requirements to have your audit recognised for your ARCP? Is it okay if you work with someone else, even if that's an F2? So do you have any advice about that?
Yes. So thank you very much for the question. So for ARCP in terms of audit wise, actually there's a requirement of how does it count as involvement of the audit, which is at the curriculum part of the of your portfolio. So you guys can go and have a look. So from my memory on top of my head, F1. For F1, so you just need to be involved in an audit. So what does that mean? So to be involved in an audit doesn't need to be the one the one design and carry out things, carry out plans, etc. And of course, you can work as a team with other F1s to do audit and stuff. That is actually a very good idea and very useful way to make things very smooth. As I said, you need your team, and more hands make work light. So just to say an example, so I remember one of my colleagues was doing a long audit. It lasted for nearly 8 months to a year. And what he did was that he basically just got in touch with the colleagues which is doing the same rotation, the same set of rotation. So you have got friends which is doing the same rotation just in different orders. So he basically asked all the other F1s who is doing the same set of rotations, and then they just three of us because in our deanery we only have got 3 rotations for each year. I know some have got 4, but so just to talk about our deanery. So basically they basically 3 of us, they form a team and then they do an audit. So therefore, like, they can carry on in that department for nearly a year, which is a fantastic idea to do, and I was very impressed. And I think yes, just work. And I think yes, please work with other F1 and also if you work with other people, and then both of you can benefit as well, isn't it? And learn from the audit.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's very true. So just one question that was coming up a lot as well was, were there any specific softwares that you use when you were analyzing your data, or doing statistics or anything like that?
Okay, so that's a very good question to ask. So I think for audit wise, I don't think that involves a lot of complicated statistic. I think the most of the time I encounter is to create some sort of graphs or charts. So what I use is just use the Excel function to create the charts, and that's it. And I just put on the presentation to present. And I don't, as I said, like for data collection too, there's a software called RedCap that can help you to collect data, but that usually involves things like multi-center and stuff. And I don't think at the level of F1 that you need to use that sort of things unless you're doing something regional and stuff. And I think so. I don't think that you probably involve a lot of complicated statistics, but yeah, there are some statistics software that are available online that you can use if you need them. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you so much. So I know James has been answering this question in the chat to Wesleyan, which has been great. Thank you so much. But I just wanted to ask you as well, Chris, for your input on, people are asking sort of, is now a good time to invest in things like Vanguard or in the stock market? Chris mentioned putting money into an ISA might be a better option. Just wanted to find out what your take on that was.
Well, in times of turbulent markets, etc., and everybody's heard the doom and gloom that's out there, if people are actually sort of investing in new money, cash, etc., then from a long-term perspective, then now is a good time if you want the money in 5, 10 or 15 years time, because you're getting good value in the long term when the markets sort of recover from COVID and Brexit, etc. So ISAs are obviously tax-free and would be the first point of call for anybody to invest because it's free from capital gains and income tax. And what I would say, with the cost of goods and services and inflation likely to be about 3% by the end of the year, unless you're getting a decent return on your savings and long-term investments, then you will be going backwards, if 3% is eroded each year through inflation. So you're going to have to look to invest in other assets, whether it be property, the markets, bonds, gilts, and the ISA, certainly for people that want to save, will be the first point of call for up to 20,000 each year, which is the allowance. You've then got to decide whether you want to link it to, putting a deposit on a mortgage, on a property, or whether it's your long-term plan to retire early. But I hope that sort of gives you a bit of confidence. But the answer is yes, long-term, putting new money into investments is probably a good thing because you're buying things at a discount at the moment. But again, what we do is we speak to people, we assess the risk appetite, we educate people in terms of what is good and bad out there, and then come up with a solution that's comfortable for people that want to invest, depending on the risk that they want to take. So what I'd encourage, if people do want to save and look to the future, Everybody's different, everybody's different feeling. All we're trying to do is provide you with quality advice. Yes, people should be looking to invest long term if they have the funds available.
Thank you so much. Just while we've got you here as well, if I could ask you one more question.
Okay.
Someone was asking if can they still be in the NHS pension scheme after leaving their permanent job if they continue to work as a locum doctor in the same hospital with their medical bank?
No, if they're a locum and self-employed, you'll only get pension accrual if you're part of the NHS pension scheme and being paid by the NHS. So if you become a locum, self-employed, or even private earnings, then that's non-pensionable from an NHS point of view. And I know a lot of doctors have combined income from different sources, but you'll only accrue national NHS pension benefits if you're being paid by the NHS.
I see. Thank you so much. So Sam, could I ask you another question that's come up quite a bit? So people are asking if you're really stuck for ideas and you're not sure sort of who to approach or what to do, what advice would you give someone if they need to think of an idea for an audit?
So if you're not sure, so I think that probably started off when I was a medical student. So I was being told like, oh, you should probably get involved in some audit. But at that time I'm probably very confused. I didn't even know what it was. So basically what I did was I spoke to my education supervisor at that time. So I had like education supervisor during my med school time, and then he basically just went through what audit is with me, and then basically just told me what project is he doing at the moment, and then I helped him out a bit, and then I sort of got a little bit idea, and then I worked on from that idea to another idea. So I think it's about to get idea, you have to understand what your specialty are doing, and also what the specialty is doing, and also what sort of services that your department provide, and also what sort of problem that you have. It takes a long time. To be honest, it is a difficult job to think about that like within a week or so. But I mean, if you engage in the clinical activity, if you engage in the ward, you probably will realize some problems that you have. So for example, if you have been if you have been like working long, so for example, like if your department is very busy and then you have got a lot of turnover, then you can think about how the problem to resolve it, to sort of like in terms of human resources and that sort of thing. That could be an audit idea. So it is very difficult to just tell you what idea that to have, but that is my line of thinking in terms of how I generate idea.
Okay, so just one or two more really quickly, because I know it's getting close to 8. So someone was asking, what do you mean by stakeholders? Who are they and how are they involved in the audit process?
So stakeholders means that the people that are involved in terms. So I would say in this case, providing services. So for example, like I did an audit previously on ankle fracture. So for ankle fracture service, that it will be probably included, of course, orthopedics doctors, radiographers, and then also emergency doctors, because usually ankle fracture they go to emergency. So they are the main three stakeholders that are involved in that audit. And then so basically when I'm thinking about plan, I have to liaise with all of them, and I invited them to the audit meeting and present. So that is what I meant in my presentations.
Thank you so much. That really cleared out. One last question, I think, before we close, just to you, Sam. Someone was asking if you had any advice for writing an audit proposal or a QIP proposal, if there are any key things that really need to be in there.
Yes. So usually there is a template for you to follow for different trusts. So for my trust, there's a template. It's just a form to fill it in. So I would say, just from the top of my head, so you have to include the title, of course, of your audit, and then of course the supervisors, and who are the main authors or the authors that are involved. So of course you yourself, and then maybe some other of your colleagues, and then you have to talk about the aim and objectives. So just to clarify, so what aim? So aim is the main thing that the main message you want to do, and then the objective is the process. It's probably more talking about the process, that how you carry it out. And then you need to talk about whether you're doing that retrospectively or prospectively. As I mentioned earlier on, it's important. It's easy to do things first, like retrospectively, and then do one prospectively. This is usually what people do. And then you talk about the sample size, what sort of audit standard that you're using, and then there are some other things, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But I think these are the main things that you should cover in your audit proposal.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It's been so useful. I wanted to say thank you to Chris again, and for James and Vera for joining us and answering questions on behalf of Wesleyan. I hope it's been super useful to everyone who's watching. And I'll just pass it back to Sam to say thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much for attending this webinar. And also thank you very much for your ongoing support. If you have been listening my talk from the first one till this one, it is very sadly that this is the last session for the whole series. Therefore, I've decided just to give you guys something. So if you guys just fill in the feedback form. So the feedback form is available on fy.mecas.co.uk. So if you click on the second button, the feedback, you fill it in, there will be a certificate generated automatically to you and will be sent it to you. But don't worry, we will not be disappeared forever. So we will bring you guys back with some more series. So the next one will be, I know a lot of people are interested in locum. I heard there's a question about locum this time again. So it's good. So next month, we are planning to do a talk on locum. So ideally, it will be on the 23rd of September. So we're not sure yet, but make sure you follow us on MECA's Facebook group, and then we will keep you guys updated. Okay, thank you very much. I wish you guys all the best in your F1 years, and see you.
I think we should thank Sam for the great job he's done with the F1 Survival Guide series, and all our sponsors, including Wesleyan. Thank you, Chris, for spending your time this evening coming online to give us a quick talk. Thank you very much.